Now turn to Section 3. Section 3. You will hear a conversation between two or more speakers in an educational or training context. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Right, Maya. I've been reviewing our essay outline on digital distraction. Before we finalize the structure, we need to be clinical about the methodological deficits in the current literature. Otherwise, our critique will lack empirical rigor.
I agree. My first instinct was to target the demographic bias. Most attention studies sample exclusively from university cohorts, students in their early 20s. It makes the findings almost impossible to generalize beyond that specific age bracket.
That's a valid point in principle, but if you look at the more recent output, the Kessler study, for instance, they've been much more conscientious about recruiting across wider age ranges. I'd say that gap is closing.
Point taken. What about the terminological chaos? Some researchers define distraction as a mere glance at a phone, while others only count a full cognitive task switch. It's a mess.
It's frustrating, certainly, but I see that more as a semantic disagreement than a structural failure of the research itself. For me, the glaring weakness is the reliance on self-evaluation. We have mountains of data where participants rate their own focus, which is notoriously subjective and often completely inaccurate.
Oh, absolutely. People are often oblivious to their own attentional lapses. I'd also argue that the temporal scope is a huge issue. We have hundreds of snapshot studies, but a total absence of longitudinal data. We have no idea how digital overload affects the brain over a year or more.
Exactly. The longitudinal gap is the elephant in the room. Now, regarding the exclusion of participants with pre-existing attention difficulties, Henderson's meta-analysis suggested that's still a problem.
Actually, Tom, if you look at the Brandt paper, they've started including those groups to ensure more inclusive data. So while it was a problem in the 90s, it's less of a current methodological flaw.
Okay, so we focus on self-report bias and the lack of long-term tracking. Now, what about our proposals for reform?
We could suggest expanding the sample sizes, but that feels like a bit of a cliché in an academic essay, doesn't it?
I agree. It's too obvious. I think a more pivotal improvement would be the standardization of measurement instruments. If every lab is using a different yardstick for attention, the data remains fragmented. We need a universal protocol.
I'm with you there. And we should definitely push for a shift in context. We need to move away from the sterile environment of the laboratory and conduct research in actual workplace settings, offices, schools, factories. That's the only way to achieve ecological validity.
Agreed. I did consider suggesting supplementary EEG or neurological data, but the fiscal and logistical hurdles are probably too high for a general recommendation.
And I think we should steer clear of suggesting research on children. The ethical quagmire in consent structures would complicate our essay too much.
Right. Let's keep it to standardized tools and real-world environments. Before you hear the rest of the conversations, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30. Now listen carefully and answer questions 25 to 30. Now let's double-check the specifics of the Kessler and Brandt study for the summary.
Right. The fundamental takeaway was that participants who utilized natural settings for their rest breaks showed a dramatic reduction in stress markers compared to the urban control group.
And the cohort was quite substantial, 240 adult volunteers. They made sure to pull from 3 different cities to maintain that urban focus.
I liked the interruption frequency they used, a digital ping sent every 8 minutes. It really mimics the fragmented nature of a modern office.
Interestingly, the restorative effect wasn't uniform. It was actually most significant in the group that had a documented deficit in attention before the experiment even began.
It's a great study, though critics were quick to pounce on its ecological validity. They argued that, because it was a tightly controlled lab experiment, the results might not hold up in the wild.
Which is why Brandt is now looking at virtual environments. The idea is to use VR to simulate the perceptual experience of nature while maintaining that essential experimental control.
That's an important nuance. Let's make sure that's in the final draft.
That is the end of section 3.